What is up, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, so, as always, we appreciate not only watching but also the questions throughout the week and all the feedback. We'll get into what is going on with your Las Vegas Raiders. Don't forget, you can also drop in questions right now as you are viewing, and we'll try to get to some of those live as well. Yesterday, or excuse me, seems like yesterday, a couple of days ago now on Wednesday, we did have the Mike Mayock off-season conference call, so we were able to get some answers from him on some of the thoughts that the Raiders were having. So we'll get into some of the things that he said, and as I said, get to your questions as well as we move along on this Friday with your Vegas Nation fan zone. Don't forget, make sure you get that Vegas Nation app and follow along at the Las Vegas Review Journal and VegasNation.com and all the socials as well. So Mike Mayock talked. Usually this would have been kind of a combine conference call, but of course, no combine this year in Indianapolis. I know a lot of people around the NFL certainly upset about that because it is the kind of the 1 week a year for everybody kind of get together, and there's a lot of parties, a lot of dinners, a lot of things like that. So a lot of people very upset that there's no combine, but I think actually it might help the process a little bit, at least now that things are figured out with a whole year of dealing with COVID and trying to figure out a lot of the best practices for Zoom meetings and that sort of thing. The Raiders would have normally had an entire staff of people at the combine. Instead, they had 12 days of meetings here in Las Vegas, out at the facility in Henderson, just kind of going over everything, the plan for free agents, for who they might release. There might be some surprise cuts on the team, and then who they're going to need to fill those spots with. Whether they're going to be aggressive the first couple of days of free agency or kind of wait around, which I think is probably the more likely scenario. And also all the draft, the prospects and which direction they're going to go. I know a lot of people expect them to go largely defense in this draft, but I think there's certainly some offensive issues to address as well. A wide receiver would probably be on the table. Certainly, some help along the line, as we saw this week. Gabe Jackson was released by the Raiders, and we heard from Mike Mayock that Trent Brown, the jury is still out on. Kind of an interesting choice of words for somebody who you made the highest paid right tackle in the league just a couple of years ago, and Trent Brown, when he's been on the field, has been tremendous. We've seen that, but that hasn't happened often enough. So maybe what they're going to do with the Trent Brown situation in terms of trying to trade him or trying to renegotiate, which I think they would certainly be open to keep him around on a more team friendly deal. So we'll see how they approach that. But a lot of talk about how they're going to try to evaluate some prospects coming up. But the draft, of course, depends on what they're able to do in free agency, and that's kind of coming up first. We're already seeing the start, as we said. Gabe Jackson no longer with the Raiders, and that was a contract issue. He's been a good player, but this is a year with the reduced salary cap that guys like him around the league are going to be released, and it's going to be a surprise for a lot of guys. I think, we keep hearing these, rumors and words like a bloodbath coming in the next week. I don't know if fans are prepared for how many players that are looked at as really, really good players, really quality starting players in the NFL that are going to be free agents. And then the real craziness begins because, you know, there's going to be, of course, the superstar guys getting the big deals right away, and we'll see that right. First couple of days of free agency, you'll see those guys locked in. But I think you're going to see an entire offseason where there's a ton of potential starters out there that don't have a job because they think they should be making a certain amount of money, and teams are looking at it and saying we can pay our superstars, but everybody else is going to have to be rookies because of where the cap is, rookies and league minimum guys, and so you're going to have all this middle class of player who really don't have jobs. And I think the teams that are going to be successful this year are going to be the ones that really take advantage of that market. That kind of swoop in and say, "Hey, listen, we can get, four starters for the price that it might ordinarily cost us to get one or two." And that's going to be a really big part of this season and this off season, and who can make those things happen. So I think a very intriguing period coming up with the off season in the NFL. But we can maybe get into a little bit of that if you have questions as we move ahead. Let's get into some of the questions that were submitted earlier in the week up on social media, and just lost it, of course, on my computer. bear with me for 1 second. I saw um, Fernando that asked about the Super Bowl and back back with you. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, he asked about the Super Bowl in 2025 or 2026, and yeah, I think it's definitely going to happen in one of those years. If you're asking which of the years, we will find out soon. It's been quite a process with the NFL and trying to kind of determine, they have a system down that's really, really good, and all of a sudden COVID changed the entire world. And I think the NFL is figuring out exactly when to do some of these things. Do they go back because Tampa wasn't able to have a full crowd at the game? Do they go back and give Tampa a full Super Bowl experience? Because not only was it reduced capacity, but we also saw no none of the usual pomp and circumstance and festivities that would go along with a Super Bowl. So do they give them one back, make up for that first, or do they go to Vegas first? I'm not sure, but rest assured, and I know it's frustrating for fans who want to see everything happen like right now, but rest assured, the Super Bowl will be here within the next couple of years. That is a guarantee. There's not many guarantees in life, especially when it comes to the NFL. That's a guarantee. So don't worry, there will be a Super Bowl in Las Vegas sooner rather than later for all you guys. And I know you're very excited about it. It was one of the reasons the stadium was even built. And in addition to getting the NFL here, is all these great events. Of course, Las Vegas lost out on the Pro Bowl this year, lost out on the draft, and those things are coming back as well. So the stadium is a game changer in terms of Las Vegas' standing in the NFL and in the sports world. But it's just going to take a couple of years to get there. And I think the benefits will be very well worth it for the town with all the things that are coming. Um, Also, we're looking at a question that was submitted during the week about whether the perceived lack of success in the draft the last couple of years will change the dynamic of who's in the room, of who's making the final decisions, who's weighing in on those decisions. And I think the answer is no. Um, the question specifically asked, will they get more input from the coordinators? And of course, that'd be, Greg Olson on the offense, and then the new defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley. Yeah, they're going to have input. They're going to, they'll be in the room. They'll be talking to Mayock and to Gruden about what they think, what fits their scheme, which players they think would be, the best to work with in terms of implementing what they want to do on both sides of the ball. They're gonna talk and they're gonna have a say. But in the end, it's going to be John Gruden who makes those decisions, and to a lesser extent, Mike Mayock. He's certainly somebody who's always been, even before he was a GM. His focus was the draft, and so yeah, he's going to have plenty of input as well. But like it's those two guys making the decision, and I don't think they're going to change it. I don't think whatever has happened the last couple of years is going to change much of that. I do feel like last year is kind of written off within the organization a little bit as like it was a COVID year. It was there was no combine, there was um, no ability to get out and meet them. And I know Mike Mayock's kind of style is not just watch a guy work out, not just watch a guy run a 40, but then go sit down and have dinner and talk to him and meet the person and learn about the person. And they really weren't able to do a lot of that. And so I think that you look at that and say, and the jury's not even out on all those guys because um, you've got somebody like, Amik Robertson, who I think still could be a pretty good player in the league. But that's a tough adjustment to go from, his size and playing outside in college to trying to play inside a lot for the Raiders. That's a tough adjustment. And I don't think anybody's writing him off at this point. Damon Arnett, who, battled through injuries and everything that he was trying to get through last year. I don't think the jury's out on him. And so, while I know people are frustrated and they want people to just step right on the field and be successful, Henry Ruggs another one who I think was more impactful than the stats would say. And of course, he made the huge play against the Jets, but I think on a game to game basis, he had a big impact on the offense in terms of opening things up and really clearing the way for Nelson Aguilar on a lot of occasions to make some of those big plays downfield. So while you want to see the stats and the production and everything else, like I don't think it's as simple as saying like the draft class didn't work out. I think that there is still some possibilities there. So I don't think they're going to make any drastic changes to what they do out, um, you know, in the draft room or in the scouting room and in those meetings. I think that the process is one that they trust and that they think will be successful eventually. Um, just there is, and I realize that the professional sports world is a win now world, and I think the organization notices that too and recognizes that. But they're trying to build something. This is always about building something long term, and that's what they're trying to do. So I don't think they're going to freak out about a couple of rookies struggling last season. The Bowden case was a tough one where as Mike Mayock pointed out, they were trying to project a guy that played a different position in college, played wide receiver and then quarterback in college, and trying to make him a running back. And to do that in a year of no OTAs is going to be difficult. And that's the kind of a lesson that I think you learn that maybe the team learned from last year that they carry forward. But the voices in the room will be largely the same. Was getting into. I was trying to glance down. I thought saw something on the screen here, but um, yeah. So in terms of the free agent, I was getting into it a little bit earlier, but uh, I do think that the best course of action, and we kind of heard it from Mike Mack a little bit, will be clear as much space as they can right now, and there will be some cuts that people aren't expecting, and I'm not trying to be vague about that. It's not any kind of information. I'm just saying teams all around the league are going to be releasing players that nobody thinks are going to be released, and then they'll be there. And I think the Raiders, instead of making a big splash because they will have limited room no matter how many guys they get rid of, instead of making a big splash, I think what fans should be looking for is just to sit back. And if yes, like a guy like Marcus Williams, if he is available from the Saints, that's a guy I would pursue and pay a large amount of money to, because I think he's going to be a star for a few years and will be an anchor of a defense and fits in with what they need right now. But if you can't get your first or second option, I know fans will be looking at it and saying, "Okay, get the next best guy, get the next best guy, go do that." I think waiting is the best procedure here for the Raiders going into this offseason, because like I said, I think there's going to be a ton of guys, and then you could sit back and get 3 or 4 guys that are going to be not only solid contributors but potential starters for you late in this process. And I'm talking into June, July, into close to the start of training camp, where guys aren't going to want to sign for below market value, but as it gets closer to the season, they might be much more willing to do so. So I think that's definitely something to potentially watch for this offseason. A couple other things that were addressed by Mike Mayock yesterday. We talked about Trent Brown. That was a big takeaway. And Gabe Jackson officially, well, he didn't get to confirm that he's released, but he will be released by the team. So that's something to pay attention to as well. And then the Derek Carr, I don't think saga is the right word. The Derek Carr situation, which is very fascinating to a lot of people. Um, I think the caveat to any Derek Carr conversation is that he is a very, very good quarterback. Now, I think you have to also acknowledge there are better quarterbacks in the league. Like if you say Derek Carr is eighth, ninth best quarterback in the league, maybe 10th, then okay. I think that can be backed up. That can certainly last year he was in that mix, and that's a really really good situation to be in, to have a quarterback that is that good, of course. But that means there is 6 or 7 guys that are better. If you want to say that he was eighth, okay, then if you can potentially get better, and listen, saying that they can potentially trade Derek Carr or improve at the quarterback position is not, first of all, it's not a knock on Derek Carr, and it's also not saying he was the problem. He's not. But your job as an organization is to try to get better every single day. I've made this point that everybody should answer every phone call that comes in from another GM in the league. You don't know what's going to be on the other side of that, and that's what Mike Mayock said. That's part of the takeaway from his press conference that I think a lot of people miss, because when he was asked about, and he was asked creatively, and I know it's he can't answer a question that is, would you trade Derek Carr for Russell Wilson? He can't talk about guys that are necessarily under contract in that way, but he can speak about how he feels about the quarterback situation. And what he said was, we love Derek Carr. We think Derek Carr is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We can win with Derek Carr. That's the stuff that people came away from. And then the end quote from his his answer about Derek Carr, which was, John Gruden and I stand shoulder to shoulder and bang on the table for Derek Carr as our guy. Those were all things that he said, and those were reported accurately, and that's exactly what he said on the call. But in between that, he said, you never know what teams are going to call and what they're going to be offering, and you have to listen. And so that's the part that I don't think a lot of people took away from the Mike Mayock answer, but that's the answer he should give. Like that, I've said it. That's the answer that the Kansas City Chiefs should give about Patrick Mahomes. Like you don't know what's going to be on the other end. What if the what if the Chargers called and said, hey, we're going to give you Justin Herbert on our next 15 first round pick? Now that would never happen. I'm not suggesting something like that, but you don't know what's going to be on the other end. And I still would say no if I was the Chiefs, by the way. But that's just the point of, hey, if you can improve your team, you should be exploring it. But the Raiders should not be actively trying to get rid of Derek Carr. That's silly and foolish. But you also never know how you're going to improve and how you're going to be able to improve. And so, yeah, it would be a dereliction of duty for Mike Mayock to not take phone calls, to not listen to what the offers are out there, to not see if he can get better at every single position on the field. But nobody is suggesting that the Raiders' problem is Derek Carr or that they need to move on from Derek Carr. He is absolutely a strength of the team. So I think that's important to try to get across when you talk about the Derek Carr situation, because there was some comments in the media about the media not supporting Derek Carr, which first of all is not the job of the media, but also um, kind of foolish because nobody is saying anything negative about Derek Carr. He's been tremendous, and he had a tremendous season last year. So, looks like that was it for the questions here at the Vegas Nation Fan Zone. We appreciate you guys checking it out throughout the week, throwing the questions at us, whatever you want to know about the Raiders and the world of the NFL in Las Vegas. That Vegas Nation app. Check out vegasnation.com, for LasVegasReviewJournal.com, and all the great work that my colleagues are doing up there. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys again very soon. Thanks for joining us.